thought that was interesting when he said this will define us for a generation. I don't think he's wrong. I'm joined by Jonathan El-Khoury, Christian Lebanese, who emigrated to Israel with his family back in 2000 because of the fear that Hezbollah would murder his family. He's also a lecturer on Israeli-Lebanese relations. Good afternoon to you, Jonathan. Thank you for joining me.
Good afternoon, Sheila. And I have to kind of agree with your remarks at the beginning, where we need to ask why Israel is engaging in Lebanon to begin with. And the simple answer is Hezbollah.
I agree with you that the simple answer is that. And the less simple answer is the relationship between Iran and Hezbollah and the grip it has had on Lebanon for so long, despite the Lebanese government not wanting that grip.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. We've seen the Lebanese government trying to get rid of Hezbollah, or Hezbollah's weapon to begin with, for the last almost 2 years after they dragged Lebanon to another war that has nothing to do with any Lebanese cause. And you have to look at the history of what's happening here. A lot of people mention, oh, well, Hezbollah wasn't, created or wasn't still a terrorist organization when Israel started to engage in Lebanon back in the 70s. And then you need to go back and look for a history and look for the context of why Israel started to engage in south of Lebanon. And that was the PLO terrorist organization led by Yasser Arafat that occupied territories of south of Lebanon and started attacking not just Israel and Israeli communities like on the northern border of Israel, but also attacking Christians in south of Lebanon, Shia Muslims, and other fellow Lebanese citizens, where it led Israel to engage, like we're seeing today, to military go into Lebanese territories and push back the PLO northern from the Israeli border. And that previous one was super successful, and hopefully this one as well.
And well, we've seen various iterations of that, haven't we, since? Now, my question to my callers and to you, I'd love your reflections on it, given what you have experienced as a person who had to leave Lebanon. Did you, looking at what happened 2 days ago in Beirut, 100 bombs in 10 minutes, that level of destruction, the level of death clearly involving civilians. I've been looking at the photographs and the lives of some of the people involved, old men and women, parents, children, school children, babies, and reading about them via their relatives. And you can't look at that. I would say this wherever it was happening, but let's focus on Beirut. You can't look at that and say, oh, well, it's understandable. It's not understandable, is it? It's understandable why Israel wants to be there. It's understandable why they want to deal with Hezbollah, but that's not necessarily dealing with Hezbollah, is it? And do those deaths justify that action? Is it justifiable in any way?
Well, it's devastating to see, my homeland, Lebanon, being destroyed this way and being bombed and civilians being killed. But at the end of the day, I also look at what people are talking in Lebanon. And alongside of the devastation for the killing of innocent people, at the end of the day, Hezbollah has embedded itself within civilian territories. We've seen evidence in the last 2 days of the people that were actually the target of these strikes in Beirut, also in south of Lebanon, also in Sidon and other territories in Lebanon in about 10 minutes, where the leadership of Hezbollah were meeting at the same time. And Israel decided to strike all of them in order to make sure that they wouldn't be able to execute any more attacks.
And I know they killed. I know they took out commanders, but in a dense area, in a block in which there were families as well. I mean, it's horrible. And the reason I asked the question, because I absolutely understand why Israel needs to tackle what's going on in Lebanon with Hezbollah, but nobody wants to see another Gaza. Nobody wants to see the south of Lebanon razed to the ground and the human suffering that we saw so much in Gaza repeated there. And indeed, I'm absolutely aware that we see plenty of human suffering in Israel, not least the displacement currently of loads of the population, 50,000 people in northern Israel. That's been the case pretty much since October the 7th. And then on the other side, of course, we have the huge displacement of people in Lebanon. The reason I mention all of those is the situation is starting to feel as impossible as the Gaza situation felt. And nobody wants to see a repeat of that.
I think the Lebanese case is a different case, because at the end of the day, you do have a Lebanese government that has put itself in the position where they do want to see Hezbollah being dismantled and not dragging Lebanon into any war that has nothing to do with any Lebanese cause. Because let's remind, 2 times Hezbollah dragged Lebanon in the last 3 years to wars that has nothing to do with Lebanon. Yeah. One was on October 8th, 2023. They joined Hamas after the deadly massacre that they executed on October 7th.
And started bombing immediately.
Firing. Yeah, exactly. And then the second time was on the 2nd of March, after the elimination of Khamenei in Iran, where they said this is an indication to the going of Ali Khamenei. So it was 2 times that also the Lebanese public have seen that Hezbollah has yet again didn't go with any Lebanese government decision. They decided among themselves to disregard any Lebanese sovereignty or any Lebanese decisions and drag Lebanon to another war. And I think that, and this is why it's a different case, because in Lebanon, we do have a government that is trying to be as independent as possible. And you've talked earlier about the ceasefire between the USA and the Islamic Republic of Iran, which didn't include Lebanon for that same reason. Because also in Lebanon, we've heard Nawaf Salam, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, saying that he doesn't want any other government to negotiate on behalf of Lebanon, that the negotiations for ceasefire needs to be held by Lebanese officials. And I think this is why it's a different case.
Oh, I don't doubt for a second. It's clear how different it is with Hamas in charge in Gaza at the time of October the 7th, and still now. The reason I made the comparison was about not wanting that scale of death to be seen again.
We do see, although the devastating news from 2 days ago, we do see that the IDF is trying as much as possible to avoid harming civilians, and that's why, by the way, they have decided to evacuate completely these territories where they are 100% Hezbollah holdings in south of Lebanon. I will give you an example. I come from south of Lebanon. My village is very close to the Israeli border. It was a Christian village, and the Christian villages in south of Lebanon, they didn't evacuate. The Muslim Sunni villages in south of Lebanon didn't evacuate. The Druze villages in south of Lebanon didn't evacuate because they made sure for the last 40 years not to let Hezbollah use their territories to attack Israel or to embed themselves within the civilian population. And although we do see some strikes on these villages, but it's only when Hezbollah uses their territory and they go in. Other than that, they are still in their homes, they are still in their villages for the last 40 plus days.
Isn't the truth though that Israel says we're not aiming for civilians, knowing that if they bomb 100 bombs in 10 minutes in a dense place like Beirut, you're going to kill civilians. It's just a certainty. Not all of them are leaving. Not all of them can leave.
Yeah, well, I know that these strikes weren't announced before because they are targeted strikes against leadership of Hezbollah. And
so they are prepared to kill civilians. And I know that happens in every war.
I'm really sad to say that. It's like in every other war, civilians will be killed because of the war. Also in Israel, civilians died because of bombs and ballistic missiles from the Islamic Republic. But yet, on the other hand, I do look at the history. I do look at, for example, the bombardment of the UK and the US over Nazi Germany. And civilians did die when they tried to stop the death machine that is called the Nazi Germany. So at the end of the day, although the IDF is trying
35,000 in 2 nights in Dresden, yeah.
Yeah, so we don't see these numbers today. We saw that in Gaza, for example, the official numbers, as we've seen them, are 70,000 in 3 years. And when you go to the equivalent, here's for example, when you go to the equivalent of people who were active members of Hamas that died, they are also included in the 70,000. Assessments are that about 40 to 50% of the 70,000 are actual Hamas operatives.
I get that, but people aren't numbers, are they? People aren't numbers. Each person is a universe.
I know, and that's why it's very much, you can't really win an argument when you talk about civilian
and I'm not saying Israel is
not wanting to win an argument, but at the end of the day, we do need to look about this, for example, these strikes and this war, comparison to other wars that happened all over the world. And you can see that Israel is doing everything it can in order to minimize civilian casualties.
Can I ask a more sort of zoomed out question?
Yes.
The US and its bombing of Iran hasn't stopped Iran fully in its tracks, certainly hasn't stopped Hezbollah, which is essentially a mirror of Iran in Lebanon. Mm-hmm. Israeli strikes in Lebanon on Hezbollah and civilians have not stopped Hezbollah over the years. UN resolutions haven't stopped Hezbollah. UN forces on that southern border haven't stopped Hezbollah. Is it time again to look at stopping the killing and getting the international community? I think it's interesting to hear what Keir Starmer said there about this being a moment where we draw a line and start again, essentially. Is it time to start again on how we deal internationally with that whole area? Because what's happening, the bombing, even if you support the bombing, it isn't working. It hasn't crushed Hamas. It isn't crushing Hezbollah. It just isn't. Or Iran fully.
Yeah, well, my personal view on that, alongside of making sure that imminent threat is eliminated with the long-range missiles, for example, of Hezbollah against Israeli civilians, where they are pushing them more northern than the Israeli border, so they aren't able to go in and do October 7th like they really planned to at the beginning. Yeah. Alongside of that, I believe, my personal belief, is diplomatic, diplomatic corridor. That's why I very much have been talking in the last 40-plus days that Israel should respond to the Lebanese request for direct negotiations, because at the end of the day, military campaign alone can destroy Hezbollah 100%.
Although
because Hezbollah is embedded 100% in all of Lebanese territories and not just in the south. That's why they need to do a cooperation between the Lebanese government and the Israeli government. And also, I believe that international forces should also be involved, not necessarily military, but supporting the Lebanese military.
Well, on that, can I come in? I want to say, you talk there. I mean, I introduced the concept of the international community becoming more active there in our conversation. But the UNIFIL forces are very mistrusted by the Israelis in particular, aren't they? And probably by many Lebanese, I would imagine. Because with them watching on, Hezbollah was able to build a whole network of tunnels and armament storage underneath the ground in the south of Lebanon. So that mess is just there waiting to erupt, isn't it? And it is erupting now with what we're seeing from Israel and Hezbollah. But can that international, just a final thought, can that international effort work any more than previous international efforts have? Because the bombing isn't working. The bombing, I mean, yes, it's reduced Iran's military. To an extent. Yeah, I mean, if Iran has fewer bombs to send to your back garden, you're pleased, I get that. But it hasn't brought down the regime.
The capabilities of launching the missiles have been drastically lowered.
But it hasn't solved the Lebanon, has it? And that's now seems to be a complete sort of bargaining chip for those who don't want to be involved in the talks or don't want the talks to work.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, we do see the support of the majority of the Lebanese public. The last survey that was done in Lebanon regarding Hezbollah's ammunition and missiles and everything was in last December of 2025. And the survey found out that about 25% of Lebanese Christians support the disarmament of Hezbollah. The same goes to the Sunni Muslims, the same goes to the Druze in Lebanon. And also in the Shia community,
nobody's been able to do it.
Because of the capabilities of the Lebanese military. I don't think that the Lebanese military has been drained from funding for the last 40 plus years. And they don't really have weapons or any capabilities of dealing with this kind of ammunition or to dissolve these ammunitions and to store it. That's why I do think that we need expertise both from Israelis and the US, or maybe other countries in Europe like France that is very much involved in Lebanon. You also have the involvement of the UAE and Saudi Arabia that very much invested in Lebanon and supportive of Lebanon. And I think these could be kind of the future international cooperation. Sorry?
Bigger moves along those lines you want to see from the international community.
Exactly, because I do believe that we are in a different reality than we were. And I do remember, and I think this is where I will finish, on the 17th of May, 1983, Israel and Lebanon sat at the same table for direct negotiations with the mediator being the US at the time, with the Reagan administration, hopefully to bring peace agreement between Lebanon and Israel.
Well,
the Israelis agreed on that. The Lebanese parliament voted in favor of it. They had the majority of the Lebanese public supporting it. But at the end of the day, the president of Lebanon was afraid to be assassinated by, back then, Syria that was occupying and controlling Lebanon. Today, Syria is out of the picture. The Islamic Republic of Iran's grip of Lebanon is out of the picture. We see the voices of Lebanon becoming more independent day by day. So I do think that this is now, we're in a different reality.
Well, let's hope it works. Jonathan, I must leave it there, but I really must leave it there. But thank you so much for giving us your time today. Let's hope it works. Let's hope there is an independence in Lebanon that has some heft behind it, and wherever that heft comes from internationally is important, because it's clear that the killing is not stopping the problem. It's not solving the problem. 0345 606